So abnormal weight gain भनेको it's like all of a sudden unintentional weight gain only. So usually when eating, suppose we talk about eating junk food, the low calorie product that we have been fallen into so much nowadays. So you see the market product in like added sugar, no sugar free, less sugar. So when it comes to eating ghee, like usually when you say a child like add ghee in your rice or add ghee in your chapati, they're like, oh no my god, I'm going to gain weight. So calorie game one day, suppose if I tell some client of mine that you have to intake 1200 calorie as per your body. So actual fat accumulation in abdominal area is more like it's been since our ancestrals, but it is because your picture comes into a medical reason as well. There are a lot many tips, like first they have to go through a way, like there are different kind of diets that has to be followed. So initially if they start with low carb high protein, say, and then there's something called ketogenic diet as well. So ketogenic diet is something which has proven to manage PCOS. Like I myself was a PCOS sufferer, so I have cured it for myself as well.
Hello and namaste everyone. म हो Dr. Garima Shrestha and we are back with another episode of the Good Health Podcast. आजको चाहिँ निकै नै इम्पोर्टेन्ट टपिक रहेको छ र आई होप यु विल बी इन्टरटेन्ड विथ दिस टपिक पनि र इन्फर्मेटिभ पनि हुने नै छ. आजको टपिक रहेछ न्युट्रिसन रिलेटेड टपिक्स र न्युट्रिसन रिलेटेड हेल्थमा आउने असरहरू र हेल्दी डायट र वेट गेन सम्बन्धी र हाउ टु लुज वेट सम्बन्धीको हाम्रो इन्फर्मेसन्सहरू चाहिँ आज हामी चाहिँ हजुरलाई सेयर गर्दैछौँ. हामीसँग विदाउट फर्दर डिले हामीसँग हुनुहुन्छ निकै नै स्पेसल guest. She is Anjali Goel. She is a nutritionist and she has her own brand, Nutrimantra, which is online breast consultation, which is all over the world. So let's welcome her on our podcast.
Thank you so much
Anjali,
for inviting me
Namaste.
as a guest. Namaste.
So Sanchi hununcha?
Yes, all good. How about you?
I'm all good.
Okay.
So without further delay, let's
Sure.
start.
Yeah.
हामी चाहिँ आज लाइक न्युट्रिसन रिलेटेड कुराहरू नै गर्दैछौँ. सो फर्स्ट अफ अल हामी न्युट्रिसन एन्ड वेट गेन एन्ड यो कुरा गर्ने बित्तिकै हामी चाहिँ फर्स्टमा एबनर्मल वेट गेनको कुराहरू गर्छौँ त होइन. सो वाट आर द कजेस अफ एबनर्मल वेट गेन इन बोथ मेन एन्ड वुमेन?
Okay, all right. So abnormal weight gain भनेको it's like all of a sudden unintentional weight gain हुनु. Usually in experience, like we as a human being, we tend to gain weight over time. So usually unintentional weight gain हुनु भनेको or fat gain हुनु भनेको or muscle loss हुनु भनेको it's kind of a thing to worry about. So why it happens is it has different reasons, also coming to a medical part of it. So usually when eating, suppose we talk about eating junk food. So when it comes to junk food, there is a hidden term in that. So hidden term as in when it comes to a junk food, we usually see that there is processed flour in it. We see that a lot of oil is used. We see a lot of sugar is used. But the hidden part from where we gain weight is the amount of sodium and salt that's used, which we usually ignore. So हामीलाई थाहा हुँदैन कि salt पनि यति युज भइरहेछ भनेर. So much amount of intake of salt and sodium, which does a water retention. So water ले पनि यति weight र यति grams carry गरेर हुन्छ. So because of that, you tend to bloat the next day. So usually the bloating reason, and next day when you weigh yourself in the weighing scale, you see a lot of people saying that, ma'am, I've gained so much the next day itself. So that's where the bloating counts, and also the weight gain does from the sodium. So from this, what I would give a tip for the first pointer is that make sure that you have a less salt, especially in your dinner time. And also coming to a weight gain, unintentional weight gain, that is the abnormal weight gain, it also becomes through the medicines. Like suppose you say you're taking a thyroid medicine. So over time you tend to weight gain, but उसको dosage पनि पुगिरहेको हुनुपर्छ. So with the time you have to gauge your medical reports as well. And also coming to your beta blockers, your depression medicines, your stress medicines. Also the cortisol, which is getting released, the stress hormone also adds to abnormal weight gain, which we usually do not realize. That's ignored in our part. And also coming to another point, that is your marketing gimmick, the low calorie product that we have been fallen into so much nowadays. So you see the market product in like added sugar, no sugar free, exactly, less sugar. So we fall into that. Instead of following what's given in our kitchen, the traditional food, we tend to forget our traditional food. And also adding to the traditional food, suppose if we take an example of ghee, जुन हाम्रै घरमा बनिरहेको हुन्छ, हाम्रो एन्सेस्टर्सदेखि चलिरहेको छ. So when it comes to eating ghee, like usually when you say a child, like add ghee in your rice or add ghee in your chapati, they're like, oh no my god, I'm going to gain weight. So where the myth lies is, so it's just a myth that people see that ghee is something which will make you gain weight, but they don't see the beauty and the goodness of ghee, which it has a saturated fat. It's made with short fatty chain acid. So ghee ma ke huncha bhane हजुरले त्यही rice, suppose if you eat rice like 80 grams of rice and without ghee in it, so it will spike your insulin level. त्यसको glycemic index कम गर्नको लागि, if you add that amount of ghee, if your glycemic index was rising by 80, it will rise just by 50. So that glycemic index, to lower the glycemic index of the food, make sure that you're adding a natural amount of fats. So that's where the abnormal weight gain happens. Achha. And rest, it depends on the lifestyle as well. So talking about COVID.
Exactly.
Now the scenario has become like everybody is working from home. So usually nobody is even stepping out of home. So the life has also become sedentary. And also the calorie intake, which we have been doing over time. So there is no calorie expenditure. Instead, there is just calorie intake that's been happening. So that's how the weight gain happens abnormally, and it's ignored usually.
Thank you so much. It was helpful because junk food ko side effect, what happens after eating junk food, and next time bloating kasari huncha. So right. People actually don't know the Garima, so you told it so nicely. Thank you so much. And actually people find it so hard to lose the weight. So how can people lose the weight in terms of exercise and in terms of dietary habits to remain healthy?
Okay, all right. So in terms of dietary habit and exercise, so it's all in all a calorie game. So calorie game one day, suppose if I tell some client of mine that you have to intake 1200 calorie as per your body. So calorie is decided as per ideal body weight. So ideal body weight is basically I gauge your height, I gauge the weight, and then I gauge the age. So according to that, calorie is decided. But when I say 1200 calories, it does not mean that you eat 600 calories burger once and second meal you eat 600 calorie pizza. Yeah. That does not mean you complete 1200 calorie that way. So it has to be more of nutrient dense when it comes to completing your calorie. And also, all in all, usually I see people that, they are totally into apps, gathering their calories, all in all. But they should be aware about the product that they have been using. Like usually, biscuit enter around so. But biscuit does not mean it's just a particular kind of biscuit. It has a different calorie in it as well. And also coming to a point of calorie intake we usually ignore the tea, coffee, snacking time that we've been doing like thrice or 4 times a day. So instead of doing that, like we see green tea. Green tea, usually we have a myth that green tea will make you lose weight. Yeah. That's not a right thing, because something that you're drinking won't make you lose weight. Like that's just a myth. Green tea is just a stimulant that will just increase a bit of metabolism and nothing else. So of course, I also prescribe green tea just because my client do not over binge on drinking their sugary tea or sugary beverages or anything as such. So it's all in calorie and calorie out game. So it has to be balanced on how much calorie are we expending and how much calorie are you intaking.
Wow, thank you so much. So I hope हाम्रो भ्युअरहरूले चाहिँ अलिअलि केही इन्फर्मेसन्सहरू पाउनु भयो how to lose weight in terms of a dietary habit, because क्यालोरीको कुरा हुन्छ. And then when they consume green tea, I have seen so many people, they consume green tea with added sugar. Right. And they feel like, okay, अब green tea खाएपछि चाहिँ मेरो weight lose हुन्छ. So that's not the way.
That's how they think green tea is so healthy.
हजुर, exactly. They add sugar. Exactly. And then they feel like, okay, green tea चाहिँ weight lose गर्छ भनेर.
Correct.
हजुर. So talking about central obesity, so what is central obesity and how does it affect health?
Okay, so central obesity is basically your fat accumulation in your abdominal area. So actual fat accumulation in abdominal area is more like, it's been since our ancestrals, but it is because your picture comes into a medical reason as well. But usually it's fat accumulation in this area because of the waist to hip ratio that we do carry as a human being. So central obesity कसरी measure गर्ने हो भने central obesity is your waist to hip ratio. So even a person standing it themselves can measure the central obesity. And also coming to central obesity is the fat accumulation, in so much so that the fat deposit goes into the bloodstream and it does affect the health as well. Exactly. So how it affects the health is so the fat deposit goes into a bloodstream, and different medical condition arises like hypertension, your diabetes, your heart stroke. People don't even come to know like how did this happen, but inside their arteries were clogging. just because of the high level of triglycerides and your LDL. So that's how it affects the central obesity. Yeah, so that's it.
And then because of weight gain, there are lots of problems arising, like you told, central obesity र अरू कुनै पनि weight gain ले गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ cardiovascular strokes हरू हैन, diabetes, hypertension हुन्छ. त्यस सँगसँगै there is increase of obstructive sleep apnea पनि,
Right.
snoring हैन. So weight gain ले, how does weight gain affect obstructive sleep apnea or snoring, and how can it be prevented?
Okay, so obstructive sleep apnea is also all the reason towards the weight gain. Weight gain भन्दा पनि हाम्रो fat gain भनौँ. So fat gain ले हजुरको के हुन्छ भने जुन हाम्रो airway हुन्छ, so that airway is blocked because of the fat deposits in the pharyngeal fat भन्छ त्यसलाई. The pharyngeal fat is deposited in the airway. So while the person is sleeping, usually the airway is so blocked that they're not able to breathe. So that's how the air is squeezed with the restrictions in that. So in order to do that, in order to get over the obstructive sleep apnea, the snoring is the main reason of sleep apnea. So how to come over that is basically you have to, again, of course, calories then and there, but there are some functional food. So functional food, as in make sure that you're adding a lot of amount of cinnamon in your food. That is the antioxidant, which will help you clear your blockage in the airways. And also coming to your exercise. So make sure that you are doing your breathing exercise at least 20 minutes a day, be it any age, like start from your 20 to at least 45, age of 45. Usually we see even like human beings, they are worried about their snoring. So, but they don't care about the weight gain that's happening. That's usually ignored because that does not come into picture. They think that there is some problem inside the airway. Yeah. So it needs to be taken care of that as well.
So exercise and like diet is the main thing.
Yes.
How can people lose the weight? And in that way, people can, or any obese people can reduce this obstructive sleep apnea.
Yeah.
And breathing exercise as
right.
well. So we have been talking about weight gain and calorie. Are there any medications or any surgical methods that to lose extreme weight gain?
There are definitely like different surgical methods, like we've heard of bariatric surgery, and even under bariatric surgery we have different surgeries like gastric banding and all. But then in that surgery, of course, people do get it done. Like it comes to a glamorous part also. Exactly, but what happens usually is they cut down the fat in so much so that the people after the surgery, they have certain restrictions, like they cannot have whole grains, they cannot have high amount of fiber, they cannot have high amount of fats, the good saturated fat, which is really needed for our body. So that's why after the surgery, what I have seen in my experience is a lot of hair loss, because they cannot eat a lot of adequate protein as well, because they do not have digestion space. So of course there are surgeries, but make sure when you have nutrition in hand, when you have time in hand, why not go for that?
Why not go for that? Yeah,
exactly.
So before surgery, there are so many things we can do.
Yes.
So surgery is the end part.
Exactly, because after you go like post surgery, you have to go through a lot. Instead, why not do from the natural way of doing it?
So true. So we have been talking about weight gain, and what is the body mass index for Asians?
Usually the body mass index is 25. And now the research has come to a point that World Health Organization is getting down it to 23. Just because of the obesity that people are ignoring and the amount of population that's been increasing.
Thank you so much. So we've been talking about weight gain and weight loss, everything. So why we talked about sugar, added sugar also. So why is added sugar not good for health?
Okay, so added sugar is not good for health because added sugar भनेको हाम्रो if we see in the ingredient, it's written that there is added sugar. So added sugar can be in form of maltitol. It can be in the form of different sugar alcohols, which are really bad for health. We tend to ignore that, but we tend to see the marketing gimmick that it's written no sugar, added sugar. But if you see the ingredient, all the sugar alcohols, which is really bad for health. So please don't ignore that. And the tip is make sure that you're using jaggery in place of sugar. That's far better.
Thank you so much. So we talked about nutrition, we talked about calories. We talked about BMI, everything. So there are many more causes of weight gain. So one of the reason women tend to gain the weight is PCOS, which has been which was already diagnosed previously, but then it has become a topic now to we have been talking about, like awareing people about, because it's a topic where many women have been diagnosed as PCOS. First of all, I would like to ask, what is PCOS and how does it affect women's health and women's weight as well?
Okay. In PCOS women, we have a high androgen level. Due to that, the eggs, there is no ovulation there. The ovaries cannot release the eggs. So that's how the PCOS takes place. So all in all, when we talk about PCOD and PCOS, it has come into picture so much so that because we are what we eat. So that has been following us till now. So what usually happens in PCOS is people do not take care of their carb intake. Usually carb intake is so much so that usually plates ma we see roti, rice and tarkari and dal. Where is the amount of protein? Where is the amount of fat?
Exactly.
We do not care about that. It's just that, okay, we've been eating home food, but make sure you're making use of kitchen, the traditional food that's in the kitchen as well. And also coming to exercise regime, make sure you're not just going to a gym just for your body shaping or body toning. Make sure that you're concentrating on your calorie intake that you've been doing and the same calorie expenditure there. Because if you're consuming, or people usually believe in the magic pills, people usually believe in secret diet rather than going to a gym or following a nutrition lifestyle. So that's how PCOS has come into a picture nowadays.
Are there any tips for maintaining good like weight or maintaining a healthy weight for women diagnosed with PCOS?
So there are many tips, like first they have to go through a way, like there are different kind of diets that has to be followed. So initially, if they start with low carb high protein, say, and then there's something called ketogenic diet as well. So ketogenic diet is something which has proven to manage PCOS. Like I myself was a PCOS sufferer, so I have cured it for myself as well. So ketogenic diet is something which has been taken care as a fat diet. But when it's followed under some expertise or a fitness expert, they make sure that all your vitamins and minerals levels are taken care. So when we tell the tips about that, make sure even in the low carb high protein, the carb that you're taking, make sure that we have low glycemic index food and high fiber food, and also less use of processed packaged food, less use of your added sugar, as I mentioned previously. And also make sure that you have a habit of label reading when you're buying a product. So that makes sure that you don't tend to mislead yourself in terms of health.
Well, thank you so much. Ani, like we talked about keto diet, correct?
Yeah.
So even you had a PCOS and
Right.
maybe you went through the keto diet as well. So can you tell us about the keto diet and how is it helpful or not?
Okay, all right. So basically, ketogenic diet is the lowest carb diet. So it has the moderate amount of protein and high amount of fat. So when I say like low carb is like less than 5%, so that is less than 30 grams. And when I say high fat, is more than 75% in the diet. So high fat does not mean going and eating a slice of pizza. But high fat is something that that does not, like, we usually have a myth when we say keto diet, we usually have myth that 80 fat खायो भने त हाम्रो cholesterol rise हुन्छ होला. But the kind of fat that's prescribed, it's all your cheese, it's all your high saturated fat, which does not harm your body. Instead, that's needed for your cell membrane that's entire our body is made up of. So ketogenic diet is something which has adequate amount of protein. It does not affect your kidney as well. Usually people have this myth as well, that eating so much of amount of protein and fat, it will destroy my kidney all over. Also, there was news in the media previously. Yeah. So make sure that when you're doing a ketogenic diet, also don't get misled by the term of getting myth. Like how ketogenic diet works is, usually our body runs in glucose. We tend to eat so much of carbohydrate, our body is running into glucose. The fuel is glucose in our body. So when we start eating a lot of amount of fat and a lot of amount of protein, our body goes into the phase of ketosis. So instead of glucose, we have a ketone body inside the body. So that's how our fat burning starts once our body gets into a ketosis. So our body to get into a ketosis, it takes around 7 to 12 days. So that 7 to 12 days after you've entered ketosis, make sure that you are in the keto phase. And also the biggest myth after keto is, after I did keto, I've gained a lot of weight. So after they get off keto, they've gained a lot of weight. So why does this happen is, there's something called reverse diet after ketogenic diet. So reverse diet is something that you go to a normalized diet, like your rice, chapati and everything. And then reverse diet is something that you each day add your calories, like 50 calorie each day you add, so that your body is able to adapt to the normalization as well. And after reverse diet, there's something called maintenance diet. So even after getting from the regular diet, suppose if you're doing a low carb high protein diet, even after low carb high protein diet, there has to be a way of getting out of it. Like usually people say, like I was on diet and after leaving the diet I've gained the same weight. That's because they are not in the maintenance calorie. Like suppose if you have eaten a amount of suppose medicines, after that if you don't tend to take care, of course it's going to come back.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's a similar thing, right? So that's how you have to make sure that you know your maintenance calorie.
Okay.
Like you can ask your expert before getting off the diet and be on the maintenance calorie, and make sure that you're not binging on the junk food, or you're not binging on the previous food that has already affected your health. So it's very important, to burst the myth before you get into
Before you
that.
get into it.
Right.
So if someone is having a keto diet, then it's really important to cut after cutting off the keto diet, they must go through the maintenance diet first.
Yes.
Because after
for
that,
the reverse diet and
yeah,
maintenance diet.
for a reverse diet and then maintenance diet. So for that we need to consult a nutritionist.
Yes.
Okay. So we have even heard about intermittent fasting, होइन?
Okay.
Intermittent fasting को बारेमा चाहिँ अहिले धेरैजना मान्छेहरूले
Yes.
सोधि पनि राख्नु भएको हुन्छ, and then is it helpful or not भनेर पनि सोधिराख्नु भएको हुन्छ. So what is intermittent fasting? अनि intermittent fasting ले चाहिँ हाम्रो कुनै हेल्थलाई ह्याम्पर गर्छ कि गर्दैन, because it's a fasting for more than 12 hours I guess. अनि त्यसले गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ अब हाम्रो as you told हाम्रो बडी चाहिँ ग्लुकोजमै रन भइरहेको हुन्छ. So what if हाइपोग्लाइसिमियाहरू हुने चान्सहरू, so त्यसको बारेमा पनि भनिदिनु न.
Okay, all right. So intermittent fasting is something really that has come into picture nowadays. So intermittent fasting is something that, suppose we've been intaking, as I mentioned, 1200 calories. So if we intake more than that, our cells also need space. So it's basically giving our cells a space. So usually what happens is we have a window period in intermittent fasting. So window period is like, usually people start from 16 to 8 of window periods. That is like 16 hours of fasting and 8 hours of eating. So usually what I recommend is make sure you're not starting with 16 to 8 hours, because the ekachoti garnu bhayo bhane you won't be able to survive and it eventually fails. So intermittent fasting is something which is just giving a rest to your cell. Like even we as a human being, we are working the entire week. So we get Saturday to at least give a rest to our body. So it's similar to that. So intermittent fasting works the best along with the ketogenic diet.
Okay.
And is the best solution for PCOD. So when you combine ketogenic diet with intermittent fasting, it works the best. But make sure that you're not again get misled by the term. And also intermittent fasting, when it comes to doing intermittent fasting, when you're breaking intermittent fasting, like you spoke about hypoglycemia. So when you're breaking intermittent fasting after 16 hours, make sure that you're consuming like little amount of fat in terms of your handful of walnut or handful of soaked almonds.
Okay.
And also why soaked almonds? Because it has a lot of phytonutrient in it if you do not have it soaked. So usually मान्छेहरूले के गर्छ भने they usually munch on almonds without soaking it. So there are high level of phytonutrient which affect your body. So make sure you're having all the walnuts and almonds soaked.
Walnuts and almonds both soaked.
Yes.
Oh, it's so अनि हाम्रो भ्युअरहरूले चाहिँ if before consuming walnuts and almonds चाहिँ soak गरेर मात्र खानु होला, so that यसले चाहिँ अझै
it's more effective.
Yeah, it's more effective. So we talked about BMI also previously. So what is BMI, and is BMI the health indicator?
Okay, so BMI is the full form of BMI is body mass index. So usually BMI is something which is calculated like your body weight divided by the height. So when it comes to a body weight, it's not reasonably a health indicator, because when it takes a body weight, it's entire your muscle and your fat. So usually when it's just an indicator of your obesity and individuals overweight or not. It's just it's just a figure where you can gauge. So usually what happens is BMI le garda we usually tend to get misled. Like, are we overweight or are we obese? Usually when you have to see your fat percentage, make sure you're just calculating your fat percentage and not rely on BMI.
So I think we are at the end of the podcast. We have only one question left now.
All right.
Your question is, which is the most effective diet according to you? I'm सबैलाई अब like हुन्छ नि क्वेशन्सहरु सोधिराख्नु भएको हुन्छ. Which is the most effective diet?
Okay, so the regularized diet and the most effective diet for all the body types is usually your low carb, high protein, wherein like even our Nepalese way of food and even our usual way of food is like we have a plate of rice, we have a plate of bowl of dal, curry, and a portion of chicken and a portion of curd. So basically, it contains all of it. Like your amount of fat is curd, your amount of protein is a portion of chicken and dal, and amount of fiber is your curry, and amount of carb is rice. So make sure whenever you are on a diet or whenever you are on a regular lifestyle, your home food is a good food, but make sure you are doing it in moderation, and it has to be consistent as well. So low carb high protein diet is the most effective diet that everybody can be into, but make sure what kind of carbs are you choosing. Is it simple carbs or is it complex carbs?
Thank you so much. हामीले चाहिँ धेरै आइडिया भयो about the nutrition and about the healthy diet, about PCOS also,
Right.
because PCOSमा चाहिँ कति मान्छेहरूले चाहिँ कसरी हेल्दी रहने र कसरी वेट मेन्टेन वेटलाई मेन्टेन गर्ने भनेर क्वेसन्सहरू सोधिराख्नु भएको थियो.
Okay.
सो आई होप आवर भ्युअर्सले चाहिँ
Yes.
धेरै नै कुराहरू इन्फर्मेसन्सहरू पाउनुभयो होला भन्ने आशा राखेको छु. सो एट द एन्ड अफ द पोडकास्ट हजुरलाई चाहिँ भ्युअर्ससँग केही भन्नु मन छ भने जस्ट सानो केही इन्फर्मेसन्सहरू दिनु न.
Okay, so the consistency and the moderation and the dedication is the key pointers that you have to keep in mind. Be it any kind of a diet or be it any kind of a workout regime that you've been following. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming to our show. Ani, it was very informative.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hope आजको podcast was informative and it was सबैले क्वेसन्सहरू सोधिराख्नु भएको थियो यो बारेमा चाहिँ. एन्ड हामीलाई चाहिँ इन्टरमिटेन्ट फास्टिङको बारेमा थाहा थिएन होला. इन्टरमिटेन्ट फास्टिङको बारेमा किटो डायट र किटो डायटहरूले कस्तो कस्तो खालको डायट, किटो डायटमा चाहिँ के खान मिल्छ, के खान मिल्दैन, इन्टरमिटेन्ट फास्टिङले पनि यसको साइड इफेक्टहरू के हुन्छ त्यो पनि थाहा पाउनु भयो होला, आई होप. सो थ्याङ्क यू सो मच फर वाचिङ. अनि नेक्स्ट एपिसोडमा चाहिँ विल बी ब्याक विथ अ न्यू टपिक एन्ड विथ अ न्यू इन्फर्मेसन्स. थ्याङ्क यू सो मच.